Good morning, everybody. I'm Kathy Stepp. Used to be a home builder for many years. My husband and I started our home building company back in the late 80s, just at the right time actually, and kind of crescendoed up through the 90s. Sold our company just a few years ago now. And as the saying goes, timing is everything. So that was a gift at that particular time in our lives. Since then, I've gone into the political arena. Those of you that have been members of the MBA for quite a while probably remember my run for state senate. A lot of the members here supported me, and without your support and efforts to boot, I would never have been able to go as far as I did. Served in the state senate for 4 years. We took out a 14-year incumbent and turned the control of the legislature over at that time to the Republican Party. We were able to do a lot of really great things while we were there. Of course, the tides have turned just a bit as of this last election, but that's for other people in office now to be concerned about, and for you all, obviously, to be involved in as we move forward. The reason I'm here talking to you today is because I don't have to tell you anything brand new as far as what are the challenges facing those of us still in the building industry or adjacent tangent industries today, and it's very challenging. So we're going to talk today about refining some basic things that make all businesses successful. And it really doesn't matter if you're the builder, if you're a realtor, if you sell furniture or carpeting or whatever it is, warranty service. I know there's somebody here from that business. You're still dealing with people. And there are some basic fundamentals when it comes to dealing with people that I think sometimes it's really important that we remind ourselves of. And that, again, we polish up those skills so that we need to be able to stand out strongly from our competition, because the competition is tighter than ever. The glory days for the order takers are over, aren't they? Back in the 90s, pretty much everybody was a home builder. Everybody hung their shingle out and said, I can build a house too, because they saw things going really, really well in the industry. Everybody got in, and you really didn't have to be that sharp to be successful, because there was so much available business out there. But now we have to compete on every level, and we have to be really sharp on all of these levels. Quality, price, most importantly today, service. And it's really important that we remember a couple of key things. One is any builder can build any house. Now sure, there are some copyright laws that go along with that. But basically the consumer today thinks, I'm going to shop builders A through F today, and really they're all going to probably have something that I want. So remembering that the cookie cutter mentality is out there already among your buyers. And every builder thinks he's the best guy, right? We all have very high opinions of ourselves, don't we? But every builder has weak spots, and if you know your competition, you know what weak spots are theirs. And tough markets call for tougher competitions. Knowing what your competitors are doing out there, knowing their weak spots, and of course building back up and refining your own skills so you're not weak in those same areas. So the first thing you have to ask yourself as a business owner is, who am I? Right? What am I as a business? And perception, not just in politics, which I found out the hard way, is reality, but it is in business as well. And really, your perception doesn't matter, because we can always rationalize away why we do what we do, how we say what we say, why we look the way that we look, why we put that product out there with whatever features and benefits we're offering. But really, none of that matters, does it? What matters is what the customer thinks. So, an important thing for businesses to do today is to take a baseline poll of where you are with the customers you've already worked with. What do they really think about you? And they're not going to really tell you to your face, by the way. Most people don't want confrontation, and if they're finished with their business with you, if it was a pleasant experience, that's fine. They really want to go back to living with their families and moving on in their lives. If it was negative, they can't wait to get away from you. They never want to see you again, right? So a good way to do this is to do some anonymous polling of the homeowners and your subcontractors. A really great tool, by the way, is to poll subcontractors that you no longer use. Those are the guys that you will get the most honest answers from. You have to do it in a way that assures them that it's anonymous. And you will get your best answers that way. So on the questionnaires, you're going to want to talk about a couple of different phases of the process with homeowners that you've built for. So the first stage of your relationship, if you will, is the pre-sales process, before you get the deposit, and kind of evaluate what your practices are at that point. During construction, the kind of bumpy part, right? Also very important to find out where your strengths and weaknesses are as a company. The completion phase, You know, the settling up time, when it's getting ready to move in. How do you do there? And after occupancy. It's really important that we establish good, consistent customer care at this point as well. Don't be afraid of criticism. Most people will say to me, you know, Kathy, if I'm not hearing from them, I'm good with that, they're happy, right? You can sleep at night because nobody's nagging at you about things. But the lurking out there of unhappy customers who aren't telling you to your face but are telling 10 people instead is something very dangerous, and you need to corral that in. Value, give people values from 1 to 5. You know, 1 being poor, 5 being excellent. So give people a scale on which to say how you're doing. And allow comment lines after each question. You'll find that a lot of times customers or subcontractors will pick out your employees by name and say who it is that did well or didn't do well. It's really good information when you're doing employee reviews. Separate the different phases of the relationship like we just talked about. Guess where the highest marks come from? Pre-sales, right? Before you've made the deal, we're really good, aren't we? During construction is almost always the lowest marks that you're going to get. It's during the build phase, during that uncertainty time. People are very nervous and distrusting. Post-construction, believe it or not, you would think that after they move in is where most builders drop the ball. It actually isn't. It's during the time of construction. So enclose a self-addressed postage-paid return envelope to your customers and to subcontractors to encourage their participation. Ensure the customer of anonymity. Don't mark the questionnaires any certain way so you can go, I wonder if that's what the Smith said, so I'm going to make a certain mark on the Smith's questionnaire, right? It's tempting, but don't do it. The time to send it usually is after they've been in the house at least 3 months. This gives them a chance to have gone through the pre-sales, the build process, the settling up phase, and some time of post-occupancy. The reason you don't want to wait till the 1-year anniversary date is because a lot of the details will have been forgotten by then, believe it or not. Even some of the negative things that have happened to them during that process will have been forgotten, and you're not learning as much as you could from the customer. And if they're willing to give you their name, and if they're willing to allow you to use their questionnaire as a referral piece so that you can show prospective customers this, offer them some type of an incentive to do that. And make sure you send out the incentive. Otherwise, you're really going to tick them off. Tradesman opinions. This is really important what your subs think of you. How many in here are subcontractors? Right? And I bet you all have complaints with builders at one time or another. And I bet you all interact with the homeowners. So your opinion is really, really important to what the customer ends up thinking. Common complaints that subcontractors have about builders, the number one you would think is what?
Probably don't pay them quick enough.
Okay, I'm glad you said that because most people think it's slow payment. However, the number one complaint subs have about builders is poor communication and poor organization. What does this do to the job progress? And how maddening is it to the subcontractors when they're not given clear direction and they get conflicting information from the homeowners on the site, and it makes them look unprofessional as well, and that's something they too don't appreciate. And of course, in third is slow payment. So we have to make sure that we're prompt on paying our subs, remembering once again that referral business will come also from our subcontractors and how important it is to take care of them and treat them like the professionals that they are. It's also important that we recognize our weaknesses. No company does everything right. We may think that every day, that we're doing things the best, but clearly if we give some introspective thought to how we do our business practices, we can understand that there are always areas to improve on. Make sure you're accepting critique without being defensive. And rationalizing leads to rigidity. You'll find that the old-time builders who've been out there doing it for a long time are the least likely to be the guys to bend and change some of their business practices and even some of the products that they're offering. So be open-minded and be flexible. And evaluate all stages of your business too. Now you've got your baseline. So the next thing you need to do is take a look at your sales materials. And what we're trying to do here is focus on removing the negativity. So what are you promising in your sales materials? And are you clear in your explanations of inclusions and additions and pricing? Perform a negativity check, and this is really important. There's some hot words that you should be looking for in your sales materials. No, not, never, cannot, right? Very rigid words. And you want to review your sales materials and make sure that that's not in there. There are different ways to word what your actual rules are, if you will, without being so negative to the customer. So sales materials, your building construction agreements are full of no's, nots, never, shall not, cannots, by the way. So the MBA's contract, you know, that they've done up so nicely for us to be able to draw from. Go back through there and reword some of that. Obviously get it okayed by an attorney friend or even through MBA before you use it again. But this is really important. Any addenda that you create, and the longer I know that we were in business, the more addendas we ended up having, right, for our contracts, because every little thing that comes, you think, I've got to address this for next time so it doesn't happen again. And your spec sheets also many times can have no's, nots, nevers, will nots, cannots. Because why is that? Who likes to hear the word no? People don't like to be told no on anything. From the time you're a little kid all the way through your adult years, it creates a defensive posture. It establishes domination instead of partnership. Use explanations to people instead of mandates. And exude positivity. Instead of saying something like this in your materials, homeowners are not allowed on site without an authorized escort. That's a rule. And you think to yourself, well, I have to say that, Kathy, because there's liability reasons and we're trying to keep control of the site, right? And I say, I know you have to get that point across, and it's an important and valid one. But a different way to say it is this: to ensure the safety of all who enter, homeowners are only allowed on site with an authorized escort, right? And people go, oh, that's reasonable. Because most people, like when you're a kid, they want to at least have some rationale behind why do you have this rule. Another thing, homeowners cannot negotiate extra work with subs directly. So what is it that they're thinking in the back of their mind when they hear this? Huh, he wants to make more money off me, that's why, right? They're suspicious of you. Instead, if you say, to prevent miscommunications and keep your project on time, please discuss changes to your home directly with builder only. And what do they think? They go, well, that's reasonable, of course. He's trying to keep it on time, and he's trying to manage communication, and that's very responsible of my builder. And that's something that they can go along with. So before the sale is our courtship stage, right? This is our dating time with people when we first get to meet them. And during the building process, it's kind of like planning a wedding. There's a lot of plans that go into it. There's a lot of dreams and imagination that goes on, right? Lots of imagination on the part of homeowners many times. Sometimes they're imagining unrealistic things too. They think it's going to be perfect. Move-in day is wedding day. Does move-in day always go perfectly? Just like wedding days, no. There are things that come up. And post-occupancy is a short honeymoon that you've got there. About the first 3 months, and after that, the magic wears off. They're living in the house, they're using the house now, and it's really important to manage these people effectively during that time. The 1-year anniversary now, though, is your opportunity to renew the commitment. So before the sale, ladies, what do? Right? We always look really nice when we're dating. Guys, we do the flowers and the whole courtship thing. We're romancing the buyer. So we're very warm in our greetings with our customers. We meet them at their convenience, don't we? Oh no, it's not office hours now. It's when do you want to meet, Mr. Prospect? I'm happy to make arrangements for you. We're accommodating. We're always smiling. Prompt answers to their questions. If they want to know how to change a certain plan and what's it going to cost them to do that, we are right back to them with that number. And why is this? Why are we so attentive? Because we want the sale at this point. We're hungry for their business at this point. And they're smart enough to know that. And our team at this time, without even knowing it, is setting a bar of expectation that the homeowner is going to be looking to throughout the whole process. You're instilling a sense of confidence in your customer at this time. You're building this relationship together, bringing them into your family, and they feel like you are just unbelievably devoted to them. And that's how it's going to be all the way through. So now they've accepted the proposal. And have you set the bar too high? Is your company able to sustain that level of attention and commitment throughout the process? Now is when your patience and professionalism is most necessary, is during this critical time of the build, whether it's taking you 4, 9 months, a year, depending on what kind of product it is that you're building. This is really the crucial time. Number one thing you always have to remind yourself, and it doesn't matter if you are a home builder, it doesn't matter if you're a carpet guy, if you sell insurance, you do this every day. You're an expert at this. The customer does not, especially in building houses. Almost all the time, 98% of the business that's out there is first time, right? First time they've ever built a house before. And what are their heads been filled with? Lots of negativity. Right? Family, friends, oh, I would never build a house again. Are you crazy? It was a nightmare. You're crazy to build a house. So you've got to overcome all of those things that have already been put in their minds by trusted people in their lives. Everybody likes to be in control. This is another thing. Nobody likes to turn over their lives to perfect strangers and be told, sit back and wait till we're done and it'll be beautiful, we promise you, right? It's a very nerve-wracking time in people's lives. And what kind of roadmap are you giving customers during this process? Are you giving them some guidelines to help get them through this process comfortably? Or is it more like the road sign that's up above? They don't know where to turn. The homeowner manual. How many of you in this room are builders? How many of you in this room use a homeowner manual? Big high up. Okay, not as many as I thought. This is the number one thing that improved the marks in my company's customer service by 80% in 1 year. I had better marks in 1 year. And that was developing carefully a homeowner manual. And this becomes the Bible that they take with them everywhere. You have homeowner manuals in your model to show people examples of, that we give you the expectations and what we're ready to fulfill up front before you ever take $1 in a deposit, and that's the manual that you will be judged by all the way through construction and, of course, after they move in. And this is the best friend you will ever make. So what's in it? Well, some really important things. Most important things are the process. What happens when? Those of you without manuals know that you get calls almost every day from some homeowners going, okay, so the hole's dug, now what? Right? And what does that mean for you? That means it's another person in your office who has to stop what they're doing, answer the phone, and talk for 20 minutes about what to expect next. Or there's water in the hole. Is that going to wreck the basement? Right? And we go, ugh, what a ridiculous question. But they don't know, do they? So it's important that they understand some of these things up front and they won't be so alarmed when they see things like that out at the site. And they'll know that you know you're not just winging it when they call and go, oh yeah, Mr. Homer, that's perfectly normal. And meanwhile, you're telling somebody off to the side to get out there and take care of it. It's already put in front of them in print, and you gave it to them before you signed the contract. Why hasn't there been anybody working on my house for days? Right? It's like, God, don't you care about me anymore? But if you address a lot of these frequently asked questions up front in the manual, it will save you a lot of trouble down the road. Make acceptance of the manual part of your contract. And this is really important when you think down the road to potential arbitration. And as the business owner, I was always thinking, how does this keep me out of arbitration? How does this keep me out of court? Right? Because that's the climate that we're in now, is a very litigious one. There's got to be a lawyer in here that would have corrected me shortly on that. But that's what you always have to be thinking one step ahead of, is what can I be doing to keep me out of those situations? Who's who in your company, so that they know who the heck they're talking to when they call up. Odds are they're not going to get the salesman, the guy that they made the deal with, the guy whose eyes they looked into when they shook hands and wrote out the check. They're talking to somebody else most times. Standards of the industry. This is the most critical part, is your construction standards. It's now not going to be my opinion if the grout line is okay or not. Because the homeowner's saying, I don't like how wide the grout line is. I want you to rip out all that tile and redo it. And it's not me to say, oh, but I like that grout line. That's acceptable to me. We're not going to touch it. Right? What have you got now? You've got a fight going on. Instead, you say, well, let's refer to our manual. And you go right to the ceramic tile standards of the industry, approved by the National Association of Home Builders. There's credibility there, and you need to lean on that because you pay money for it with your dues. So you go to that and you say, well, let's look at that. And you flip to the part and say, well, let's get down and we'll do some measurements. And you find, lo and behold, that those grout lines are well within the standards of the industry. And up front, when you signed the contract, you told them that that's how your quality work was going to be judged, and that if it falls within those guidelines, it's acceptable to both parties. And if not, then it's purely up to your own charity if you decide that you want to do something about it or not. And I doubt you're going to rip out all the tile floor, right? So that's another really important reason why this is part of your contract, is come arbitration time or court, if it ends up going that far, you've got that to fall back on. Guy's got a lot on his mind, right? You want to give him peace of mind. So again, the more information you arm the customer with up front, the more he's going to have to worry about things, work, family, other issues that he's got going on in his life. Knowledge is power. It makes people feel prepared for this. He feels like he's part of the process, and he hasn't had to turn over his life to you. He's involved in it. Less stress means happiness at home. When a guy's not happy at home, and the wife's calling all the time badgering you, what do you think she's doing to him when he gets home? Right? We women know this. Wait till my husband gets home, I'm going to tell him, and then I'm going to have him call you next. Right? So let's see if we can avoid some of that up front. So that means training the homeowners. And this actually can be done. When they call with a question, the number one thing that should come out of the respondent is refer to the manual. Answer the question, but always make sure that you're referring back to the manual. And say, in fact, page 46 of your manual addresses this common question more thoroughly for you, Mrs. Smith. And say, let me go to that for you real quick while we're on the phone. And they're ruffling through the manual and they read it. This only has to happen 2 or 3 times usually, and you will find most people will not call you first. They will go to your manual first, they'll look through it and go, oh, it does say that. Okay, good, I don't have to call and complain about it. That's normal. So again, it's taking workload off of your people and getting them back to doing more productive things, and of course, once again, giving the customer peace of mind. Now she knows her question or her concern isn't a problem. It's not something new that's never been seen before on a job site. Builds confidence again in your team and your ability. And who knows who this guy is? Cesar Millan, right? Who watches The Dog Whisperer? You guys ever heard of The Dog Whisperer? Are you too busy working that you can't watch it? But one of the best shows on television. Why? Because I have 2 dogs who never do what I think they should. But why is that? Is that the dog's fault? No. It's mine, right? Not taking enough time to get in the mind of the dog. And I'm not saying homeowners are dogs. I don't ever want anybody to come back and quote me on that. But you have to look at things from their perspective and understand their behaviors and what's normal behavior for them and be able to communicate on that level. So what do we want to do? We want to underpromise and overdeliver. This is the #1 mistake that salesmen make in the home building industry. Everything can be done when you're the sales process, right? Your salesmen are out there and going, no problem, it'll be beautiful, it'll be free, I'll get it thrown in, whatever it takes for me to get the commission check, right? Now the business owner has to go, you promised, what? There's no way I can make that happen. So not only do we make overpromising, unfortunately, part of our sales process in many companies, but under-delivering is a big, big problem. And so when you talk to families up front about expectations and promise them that there will be problems along the way, because there will be. And most normal people understand that. But say, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to work overtime to try and address your concerns. There will be things that come up. But I promise you, we will get back to you. You call this office anytime, we will be back to you within 24 hours with an answer. 24 hours sounds really fast, doesn't it? You go, oh, 24 hours. Wow, I'm really impressed with that, the customer thinks. But internally, your policy should be 12. Because you're promising 24, now do better than that. Do something that really impresses the customer. But if you're going to promise that you're going to call back in 24, you better call back in 24. Because for every one of those missteps, you're taking 10 giant steps backwards in confidence. Track the calls and responses and notes like a medical chart. I was ruthless on this in my company. And this has paid dividends to me to keep us out of court, out of arbitration, just being able to remind people of what's said during a process. Remembering again that the homeowner has a lot of things on their mind, right? Especially in the pre-sales part of it. They've looked at lots of builders, they've had lots of promises thrown at them, and keeping all that straight, if they mess that up, it's not necessarily to try and get you or to try and pull something out of you for free. It's because they're genuinely confused They can't quite remember if it was you or Builder X that said that. But if you keep notes throughout, every time a customer calls, you put the customer on hold and you get their chart, just like a doctor. And you pull it out and you have pre-punched papers in there with the date of the call, the time of the call, who took the call, what's the call about, what's the action plan, and then another column on what happened after that, is it done? And I guarantee you that when customers call the business owner now and say, you know, Joe said he was going to get back to me on this and he never did. I go to the chart, I pull it out, I look at it, and I say, well, Joe says here you called at 12:17 on Tuesday, that he was going to call you back by Wednesday morning at 8:30, and it's really only the end of the day, Tuesday, so let's give him some time to get the answer back to you, and if he doesn't, I'll call you right back. People go, whoa. What else does this do? It plants the seed in their mind that you're a really good note taker, and that you're not going to screw around with kind of smudging around to the truth on their end either, and that they need to be accountable and equal partners with you. Employee performance is also really good at, this is a really good feature for that, because now you can go back. If you're getting the same complaint that your service gal isn't getting back to people, you can go back now and you've got a paper trail as a business owner to add in as part of your review process. If you've got somebody you need to get rid of, this is a really good tool to use to lean on. Sub-performance as well. If you've got a problem subcontractor and you're getting lots of complaints, now you've got it in writing. So you can now show the subcontractor when it comes time to renegotiate your deals, say, look, I've got some issues. This is the guy who's out on the rough electrical phase every time. He's a problem to my customers, and here's all the list of the times that this has happened. So that helps other businesses too. Again, lifting up the industry as a whole. And it also helps you evaluate problem areas of contracts and sales materials. If you're getting the same question over and over from people, you need to address that. There's something in your material that isn't clear enough and is causing you problems and costing you customer satisfaction points and referrals. Again, arbitration. And I'm going to beat this to death today, because customer service, if you do that all the way through, you will never be in arbitration. We were in arbitration one time in 15 years, and that was it, which stinks, because I would way rather stand up here and say to you, we were never in arbitration. But unfortunately, we were one time, long time ago. Came out very well, by the way, for us. Anyway, just had to throw that in there too. Regular updates to your customers. This is another part of servicing your client all the way through the process. Best way to do it is by phone. Why is that? It's personal. Okay? We are very tempted today to just shoot out a quick email because, oh God, I don't have to talk to that person. They're kind of a pain. They keep me on the phone for lots of questions. I can never get back to selling more houses. I need to get back to that. That's the wrong way to think. This is still someone who really values and treasures a personal relationship with you, just like during the sales process, right? Just like during the dating time. Inundate them with updates. And we used to do weekly updates. Every Monday we'd have a meeting with our staff, the expediters there, salespeople are there, what's going on at each site, what are the problems, what are the expectations to solve those. Immediately the sales team would get up, go to their offices, make calls to the clients, say, here's what's going on, and this is what we're going to be doing today. Not necessarily sharing every hairy detail, right, because you don't have to tell them everything, but just knowing that you're on top of it and that the guy who sold them the house, or the gal, forgive me ladies, right, knows what's going on. That's really important to people because they want to feel like you care about their project. Better time management for your team. Now when the customer is expecting a call on Monday afternoon, they're less likely to call you Monday mornings. They go, so what's going on this, I saw nobody's out there this weekend. What's happening, right? They're like, oh, you know what, they're going to call me at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, I'll just wait. Much better management of your people's time. Train your team to listen. This is really important too. Just like the best salespeople out there are the best listeners, so are the best customer service people, the best listeners. Is your customer unhappy or just confused? Just doesn't understand what's going on? Most people, 90% of the time, only want to be heard. Now think about this in your own life, and ladies especially, because we're really good at this. Come home from a bad day at work and you start unloading on your husbands. Now husbands, you can relate to this, right? You're watching something on TV, you're reading the paper, whatever it is you're doing, you're like, oh God, you know? Could you just reduce the amount of words and get to the point, and then I'll tell you how to solve the problem and we can move on and have dinner. But the ladies don't always want that. Women especially just want to be able to vent it and have someone hear it, and they don't even very often expect a solution. They just want an acknowledgement that you're in it with them. That's important in marriages, and it's also important in building houses and in customer service. The frame of mind and the attitude of your team is critical to build on customer confidence. Again, if you are empathetic with your customer, if you can say, I can understand why you would be confused. I understand why that would upset you if the subcontractor just walked away while you were talking to him, right? Instead of saying, well, for God's sake, the guy's got to get to 3 other houses that day. He doesn't have time to sit around and shoot the breeze with you on all your dreams on what you're going to put everywhere in the house. He doesn't care. That's what you want to say, but you can't say that, right? So you have to be empathetic to the customer. This is the husband down at the bottom. So we have to begin with an empathetic ear, okay? And we've all had these experiences, haven't we? Even if everybody in this room has never built a house before. You have had experiences in companies where you've walked in and been treated really badly, and you're really mad about it, and you take it to the next level, and you want to talk to the manager, you want to talk to the owner, right? And if the manager comes out and could give, I'm being filmed. I was going to say something off color. I got to clean it up. So if the manager comes out and doesn't care, okay, doesn't that infuriate you more? But if the customer comes out and says, gosh, I'm so sorry that that happened. This is what I'd like to do to correct it. What's an acceptable remedy in your mind? What can we do to make this better? The temperature comes down. And sometimes you don't even have to offer to fix it. You just have to go, I'm sorry that you were treated that way. All they want to hear is an I'm sorry. But you got to mean it. At least you got to look like you mean it. Okay? So empathy is something you always have to remember. Calm, even tones of voice. You've got a screaming, crazy person on the phone. The best way to diffuse that situation, or if they come marching in on top of it, which is the worst, never happened to me, but if that does happen, right, getting them off to the side, using calm, even tones, but not condescending, and there's a fine line of difference there. People know when they're being talked down to. Do not interrupt them. Isn't that your biggest pet peeve? If you're telling somebody and you're just spilling out everything that you feel and you're really feeling offended by something and they go, okay, listen, this is what, right? No, you want them to hear the whole story. So think how you would feel if it were you in that situation. And you've been there, just maybe not with a home builder. And set a realistic time to answer whatever question or concern it is that they have. Maybe you don't know the answer. Maybe you need more information. Most times you will. If they're complaining about one of your employees, you're going to need to talk to that employee and you're going to want to know what exactly happened out there. But you don't want to say it in a way of, well, I got to get Joe's side. You know, there's 2 sides to every story. You don't want to say it that way. There's a different way to say it. Gosh, I appreciate what you're telling me. Thank you for telling me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to make it right. And people will be like, oh, God, yeah, okay, she gets it. I don't have to go on anymore. She understands how upset I am. Access to the business owner. There are ways to alleviate this. As the owner of the company, you have to be accessible to your customers ultimately, but if you set the expectation and the chain of command early, once again in your homeowner's manual on if there are problems or concerns along the way, this is how our company handles it. Okay, we set that up front in writing. Now when it comes time, there's a problem that comes up and they want to talk to somebody about it, we'll say, well, just like in your manual, let me get the sales manager. Maybe your company's that big. We weren't. We had 8 people altogether. So really, I'd like to joke and say that I was like the armpit of the business towards the end, because I was like the last spot where they would come. After my employees did their best of poking them with sticks, then I got them, right? So that's the place that you end up in as the business owner. But you can make it all better in that spot. So set the expectations earlier. How does your company function that way? Again, the 24-hour callback promises. Keep them. Define what constitutes an emergency. Is it really an emergency that the homeowner saw some crushed out cigarette butts on their job site? I mean, is that something that the whole world has to stop for? Everybody in this room would probably say no. But that's not what Mrs. Smith thinks, right? She doesn't see those as cigarette butts. She sees those as disrespect and that you don't care about her house. And that's something that sometimes can become an emergency if that personality that you're dealing with sees it as such. Again, establishing chain of command so people know where to go first. Sometimes it's not going to work on the phone. Sometimes you have to have a face-to-face, and you have to remind yourselves of what you were willing to do before you got the sale. Right? Anytime. If the customer wants to meet on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, you were going to meet them, weren't you? And if they want to come at 9 o'clock at night because that's when they get done at work, you'd make sure you're at that model home because you want the sale. I'm not saying you have to go that far, and you can set some realistic, again, guidelines in your manual on what hours you're available for customer service, but be willing to extend those and flex. What else does that do? It shows the customer, here's what their rules were. They said they'd only meet between 8 and 7 for these kinds of issues or for meetings, but they're going to meet with me at 8:30. That's pretty nice. So it's showing that you're going above and beyond. Be ready with organized notes and anybody that's involved, if appropriate. Maybe they don't want the customer or the salesman there that they're complaining about. Maybe they do, and you should ask them that up front. Who do you want to be at this meeting? Make the most productive use of their time too. Beginning it with empathy, and the most important thing again, do not interrupt to defend or deny, and sit on the same side of the desk or the table. And those of you, and I see some familiar faces out here, who have been in my sales seminars, when I talk about when you're selling in a model home, use your model home furniture and sit next to them on the couch. Why do you feel like you always have to be across from somebody? Because really, what does that do? That's an us versus them mentality, right? So they come in, it's the husband and wife, and they're on one side and you're over here, and this is just how it's going to be. You've got something between you. You need to remove that physical barrier between you because it's all up here. And if you just sit on the same side, have a place in your office, whether it's a conference table, but sit next to them at the conference table. And people, you'll watch, it's a funny exercise actually in human behavior, but you'll watch people aren't expecting that. But what does that subliminally tell them? That you're not against them, that you're on their side. Let's fix it together. Again, interrupting is the biggest mistake that we make here. Let them finish what their thoughts are, even if she goes on, and I say she, because don't we all know? It's almost always the wives. I mean, come on. I'm a woman. I know how we are, right? So it's almost always her that has some crazy things to say. That's what we're thinking, right? We're like, good God, she doesn't understand anything about this. Of course she doesn't. And it's our job to help her understand. Establishing consistent eye contact. What does it say to the customer if while they're talking to you and she's pouring out her feelings, she's so hacked off at this guy that disrespected her at her house, and you're just looking around. You're thinking, right? When am I going to be out of here? Got my kid's soccer game to get to, or whatever it is that's on your mind. So consistent eye contact is really important. Nod, right? That doesn't mean that you're agreeing that everything she's saying is accurate, but it's showing empathy and that you're listening and you're a part of it. I know you know how to do this, gentlemen, because I know you're very good at nodding when the football game's on, right? You get practice at that at home. Paraphrase and repeat back. You're going to notice a lot of these tips are the same as relationship counseling tips, believe it or not, because a relationship's really a relationship. And building a house is kind of like a marriage. Aren't you really married to them for many years after they move in anyway? Right? Because they're going to call you if it's 2 years or 3 years and there's some kind of problem. They're going to expect that they can come back and discuss those issues with you. They don't care about the 1 year cutoff that you've got in your contracts. Have them bring the manual. It's their manual that they bring. Anytime they come to your office, they should bring this with them, because that's the rules that you go by. And if there are some blatant things that they're bringing up that are outrageous and are clearly addressed in your manual, at the end of their whole dispensation, it's a time for you to say, okay, let's take a breather. Let's go back now. I hear what you're saying. Gosh, I understand why that would be so offensive feeling to you. And I'm sorry that that happened, but let's go back and let's figure out how we move forward from here. And now you can start referring to your manual and go, okay, well, just so you know, in the manual it does talk about the subcontractors being available for on-site appointments. I hope you understand, but it's hard for them with families too. They've got lives and they're trying to work on other projects as well as ours. They can't always be available when you are, so let's see if we can set up some times that work for both of us. Okay? So there are empathetic ways to address those problems. And it shouldn't feel like this when people walk in. And you set the tone of the atmosphere in your office when they come to meet with you. That's your responsibility. You already know they're mad. Pick your battles. Every single thing that she brings up doesn't have to be defended. Just like in a marriage, let the little stuff go because it's not that important. But if there's some repetitive behavior stuff going on throughout the process, you need to address those items. But the little stuff, who cares? Apologize for it and move along. And most times that's all she wants to hear. Ask the customer, what kind of outcome are they seeking? After they're done telling you all their problems, say, gosh, what is it? What would you like me to do for you? What is it that I can do that can make us move better in a positive direction now moving forward? What can we do to accomplish that together? Always saying we, always saying together, always saying forward. Those are three really important buzzwords when you're dealing with customers. Monetary compensation is not as necessary as it's offered. A lot of times builders think, throw some money at the problem and it's going to go away. There's never enough money to repair the damage of a hurt feeling. That's just how we ladies are. And so, yeah, maybe you're going to throw in, well, if it's the right kind of jewelry, maybe that can work. But I doubt you're going to be buying the homeowner's jewelry or you'll all be in trouble when you get home. So, yeah, I do have to kind of rephrase that for my next seminar. I don't want to give you guys the wrong idea. But, you know, there are little things that you can do. You know what's a really great trick, too, by the way, is a gift basket to the lady of, and this is going to sound very corny, but it works big time, of like soaps and bath stuff. And say, sorry we caused you the trouble. Enjoy some relaxation on us. And you send a gift basket of all kinds of bath stuff in there. Oh, man. I cannot tell you how that soothed the savage beast so many times. And I don't want to make it sound like we had all customer complaints, you know. I mean, we built several hundred houses, probably 500-600 houses over the years. But you're going to have some personalities like that where you need to overcompensate and keep smoothing it out all the way. And it's going to pay off big for you in referral business. How do I end this face-to-face meeting that seems to be going on forever and it's killing you, right? Because you just can't stand the sound of her voice anymore. Thank them for her time in helping you meet their needs. Remind them that you work for them. It's okay to be submissive here. And sometimes this is really hard. And I'm just going to, again, be sexist in my presentation and say this is where I had to take over and my husband usually wasn't at these meetings, is because it was very difficult for him to do that. He's like, look, I'm not going to take those kind of insults. That's ridiculous. It's unrealistic what she wants. And I would have to say, of course it's unrealistic. So just don't come to the meeting, and I'll take care of it. And so that's kind of how the roles evolved in our particular business. But, you know, you've got people who are strong in your company at that, and maybe it's not you. Maybe you just don't have it in you to be quiet when people are insulting you. And that was great training for me, by the way, for politics. Being a home builder first, then going into politics, and people say all kinds of things, it just doesn't matter, right? Because you know that you're a good builder. You know that you have integrity, and you know you're not trying to cheat people like these accusations maybe people are making. So pick the person in your company that maybe is better at handling those if you're not, or start really working hard on yourself. Acknowledge their worries and fears. I hear what you're saying. I understand why you would think that. Okay? Those are really important phrases. Develop an action plan for the customer, and that doesn't have to be on the spot, but it should be the very next day, and get back to them within that 24 hours with what it is you plan to do to overcome their objections and their problems. Follow up with a summary letter. Why do we do this? To establish a paper trail. Because when you come to arbitration, if this is the way it's going to go, you bring all that with you to arbitration, and it shows, God, this company's really got it together. If I'm on that arbitration committee, which I used to be on the arbitration committee here, and I would be flipping through and go, look what they did. I mean, they just would follow up. They would have face-to-face meetings. They'd send a letter. They'd send gift baskets. I mean, what more can this guy do? This is just a problem personality, right? And you're going to come out looking really stellar in the eyes of your peers because you've got your act together. You took detailed notes, you did very good follow-up, and you documented everything. Yes? You know what? You got to do what works. It doesn't take long to do it, even if you send an email. Just some kind of a reconnect communication back, because you can print emails and keep them in the file too. And you know, we had our small days. I mean, Paul and I started out doing everything ourselves, literally, out of our tuck under garage. So, I mean, I did the sales and the paperwork, and I did the touch-up paint and the putting the nail holes and the finish cleanups. And I had a 6-month-old baby at the time, you know, that I lugged along everywhere. So I know where you're at. But these are little things that will keep you out of trouble, and it's really hard when you're the only guy and you have to do all these things, but you can put systems in place that can make it really simple, computer generated, and even do some pre-computer done up, drafted letters. Because really, most of the complaints are going to be the same. You know, feeling unheard, feeling disrespected, Those tend to be the same undercurrent complaints that people have. Yes, sir.
Getting back to, I guess, what you referred to as patronizing or condescending answers. We built our house 30 years ago at the time we used a builder.
Okay.
And it was always a deflection. I'll give you an example is they built one side wall, it's with drywall. And fireplace guys came in and I cut off the studs and they didn't put a header in.
Okay.
So the fireplace in. So say, we got a problem here.
Right.
And, it was a deflection. Oh, it's okay, da, 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 da. Of course, next time they came back to the building, there was a header in there, which was a good thing.
Right.
But
You caught it, right?
I caught it. But he reduced his credibility on sincerity with me as soon as he gave me the reflective answer.
Okay.
And that would generally be a pattern.
Okay.
And I think we can fall into that mood.
Yes.
When we're initially receiving it from his response was correct. But again,
Right.
he didn't make me feel good or comfortable.
And I bet that, because really this is what his question is it's like if the customer comes out and catches something before you have the opportunity to catch it, how do you handle that when the customer confronts you, right? What's the best way to do it? And the best way to do it is not to say, don't worry about it, it's okay, we got it, don't worry about it. Or, don't worry about it, we didn't need a header in there over the fireplace box. Okay? And obviously the customer comes back and there's a header. Sometimes you're going to have some somewhat educated customers. Some are going to have really educated buyers with the internet now. So it's kind of changed the dynamics a little bit. It's not so easy to deflect things anymore. And you shouldn't deflect. You should accept responsibility and say, oh, thanks for bringing that to my attention, Mr. Smith. Just so you know, Joe the expediter checks all the framing before the inspector comes out. And while I appreciate you caught that, I'm confident our team would have caught that as well. We're going to get out there and fix it right away to allay your concern, but know that we'll have it done right before the inspector comes out. There are ways to acknowledge that didn't happen at first, but also that comes back to taking a few steps back and acknowledging to your buyer up front that this will not be perfect, that this house is a handmade object by hundreds of skilled tradesmen. Will have their hands in every piece of this. And that doesn't mean it's going to go perfectly. In fact, I promise you it will not. And if you make that promise up front and then you say to people right away, what I will promise you on the positive side of that is we will overcome every one of those bumps and we will be your partner in success all the way through to the best built house that your money can buy. And that's a real thing to say to somebody. Ending this meeting again, a firm, sincere handshake and eye contact. You don't want to be looking down, yeah, thanks a lot, and all the way you're thinking, I'm in so much trouble because I'm getting home so late and she's going to be so mad at me again, right? So you don't want to be having all that junk in your head up front. You want to be looking, you want to be shaking the hand. A hand over the hand is also a really nice touch. These are practiced behaviors that I encourage you to practice on your coworkers. It's like practice a handshake. What is your handshake? How many of you go places and the handshake is this disgusting limp handshake that you're just so grossed out by, right? Women don't like that. Don't treat me like I'm some frail thing that you're going to bust my hand if you just give me a nice, firm, confident handshake. Don't break every bone in my hand, but just be confident. Okay, so here's another important tip. Don't be afraid of the high maintenance customer. And why is that? Typically, they return the highest customer service ratings, and that's because they felt heard throughout the process. They didn't internalize their angers and their worries and just talk about it amongst themselves over dinner. You had the opportunity now to please them and to overcome any of the worries and concerns that they had. And if you took care of them right during construction, post-occupancy is going to be very easy for you. It's important that you force communication also, because sometimes we deal with people like, I like to call them the mouse, and the mouse tends to internalize things. They'll say, everything's fine. Right? We all know it's not fine, that there are problems that we're having out at the site because it's a construction site and that's what you get paid to do. You're the general contractor. You're paid to overcome the problems. Sometimes you have to remind your buyers of that too, by the way. Sometimes when he'll say to you, I would have taken care of that, etc., a better answer would be to say, Bob, that's what you're paying me for too, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention because more eyes on the project is always good. But know that I have a really experienced team of professionals with very sharply tuned eyes who would catch that too. And I appreciate that you're looking out for us as well. There are good ways to kind of not reward that necessarily, not encourage that he has to be out there. But again, reminding him that you're part of the team. Regular engagement with the customer, to them, they feel like you're their advocate, that there's someone speaking for them. Now the closing. Okay, we're getting time to move in. It's wedding day, right? People are very nervous on their wedding days, right? Thinking of a million things that could go wrong. Everything's annoying them. They're thinking, I have to be out of this place that I'm moving out of, the movers, I've got to get the utilities on, I've got to arrange some payments. This is a very, very difficult day in anybody's life, moving day. Now add to that financial worries about how am I going to pay for these overages that they've got? What am I going to do? The kids in school, and that's not working out, and I didn't get the paperwork in on time. There's a lot of things on their minds, and you have to be empathetic to that at this time. Set aside 60 minutes for a walkthrough. You need to have educated your buyers up front. Again, in the manual, talk about what is the closing day going to look like. Remind your buyers throughout the process to go back to their manual and read what to expect on that day so that they don't come in blind. Because once again, they'll have forgotten everything you said 6-9 months earlier, right? Who's thinking about what you told them then? They're not. They have a lot of other things that they're thinking about, so you need to remind them to go back and review that chapter. Child care arranged. This is a big one. How many families show up at walkthroughs and they got all these kids that are running all over the place? You have no order. You're about pulling your hair out because they're not your kids and you don't think they're cute. Okay? So these are things that, again, if we arrange this stuff up front and remind them up front, that we can overcome these problems. Final payment. If you want a cashier's check, which I highly recommend, for overages before you turn over the keys to that buyer, make sure that you've given them plenty of time to arrange that. Make sure that your final settlement numbers are done in time so that before they're ready to get handed the keys, that that's all taken care of and you're not throwing a roadblock in the way and saying, guess what, you don't get to move in today. Even though you have trucks on their way here in 2 hours, you didn't arrange payment, so you can't move in today. Now, who's the bad guy? You. So again, preparing them days in advance is really important. Talked about bringing the manual with you. Why is that? In our manual, which was our promise during the pre-sales process, we referred to it a lot during the building process. Now it's time to move in. We're going to be back reviewing it again on quality control issues. Right? What's realistic? Is it realistic that Linda Burkhalter, God bless her, one of my homeowners that sticks out in my mind, she's moved out of state, that's why I can use her name. And we all collectively sighed relief when she did in my company, actually showed up at the walkthrough with a compact mirror and a flashlight. And she literally crawled on the floor inside all the closets and shined the light on her compact mirror to see if we got the miters nice and tight right behind the closet door jambs. No joke. That walkthrough took 3.5 hours. And it was a 1,200 square foot ranch. Right? So you're going to get the Burkhalters. There's no one with the last name Burkhalter here. Okay, good. Nice lady, super nice. But holy cow, was that a nightmare. And boy, did I learn a lot from that walkthrough. So you need to set the tone. What is this going to be? So when you meet them at the house, it's a handshake and you're standing outside because you should be out there and start outside first. Okay? Set the tone and say, we're going to have 1 hour. We're going to take the time to walk through here. Make sure everything meets with your satisfaction. If we've got any questions on quality control, we've got our manuals here. We'll refer back to those. I'm sure you're going to find everything to your satisfaction. Smiling, confident, because you're proud of the product that you build and you know they're going to love what you have to show them. Remembering again, they've been in it 1,000 times already. So the little things that they alerted you to during the process, you better have those fixed if that's what you said you were going to do. If there's little cracks in the drywall that they're calling you about every time they stop by, you better have those taken care of. What happens if you don't? You've lost credibility. They're going to pick the rest of the house apart. Okay? Both parties sign the walkthrough forms before you leave the house. These forms, by the way, should be pre-done. We had a really good form that we used in duplicate. They should get a copy of what they sign. Okay? Who does the walkthrough? This varies by company. So sometimes you'll have some receptionist that'll show up out there in her heels, and it's a muddy day, and you're going to ask her to walk around the house with the customer and make sure that everything looks good? That's foolish. So don't set yourself up for looking foolish. You want someone who's A, empathetic, not an argumentative personality, should show up at the walkthrough, and someone who has a basic understanding of construction, just basic. I don't have to know how to frame in something. I should just have a basic understanding of how things work. You should also be able to explain to the clients when you're walking through things like the water heater, the shutoffs for the plumbing, you know, different basic necessities. The the breaker panel. God, am I dating myself? This is the second time I've done that. So empathetic and basic construction knowledge. God. Again, I keep saying this. Don't defend, don't deny, don't argue. This isn't the time. You just make the notes of what they're concerned about if they're really harping on this. But if it's things like they bring a 10,000 candle watt flashlight and they're shining it all on the drywall, right? Because this has happened before too. And they're like, you know, if I hold the light just like this, I can see cracks there, or I can see the seam, right? And say, oh, God, yeah, you can, of course, with that light. But you know what? Let's just refer back to the manual real quick on the standards on how drywall is judged. And say, now, you'd agree that we meet that standard. And they go, well, yeah, but if I shine yeah, but are you going to be shining that light while you're living here? He starts to look silly. That's usually the man, by the way, that does that part. Sorry, guys. I've picked on the girls enough today. Don't commit to fix something on the spot. Usually the person doing the walkthrough isn't the person coming out to do the fixing, may not understand if it can be fixed. Some of these things, again, are opinion, and there are some things that can make it better, and sometimes fixing it makes it look worse, but they should still note it. And then the authoritative figure in your company, whether that's a sales manager or the owner of the company, should be the one to get back to the customer and let them know what's going to be happening. Be a listener. You shouldn't be talking during the walkthrough. And don't be the kind of walkthrough person like one that I had, and I say had in past tense, because he just took it upon himself to find things. Oh, here's a spot over here. That miter isn't quite right. Let's fix that for you. You'd be like, what are you doing? Right? So you don't want to make work at this. You just want to present a good finished product. That's what you fantasize at the walkthrough. This is who you should be. Right? Somebody professional. Not somebody that just wants to take on this guy because they're picking apart your workmanship. This isn't a challenge to find flaws. Some customers think that the walkthrough is the time where they pick things apart. They really do think that that's what they're supposed to do. So you have to train them. You have to tell them, what is this about? This is to make sure that all the upgrades you requested are installed to your satisfaction, that the home is ready to move into. Right? That's what we're there to do at this point. Making sure that there aren't expensive things, gouges in things, in countertops, in walls, things that can happen after they move in that they see. Your policy should be clear on what are your standards. Okay? Exude a confident attitude and avoid the wanderer system. You know what's really typical is you'll have the husband and wife that come in together. One goes this way, one goes that way, and this is your walkthrough person. Back and forth. Oh, and over here, honey. Oh, yeah, look at this over here. Chaos. It needs to be an organized system and say, let's just take it one phase at a time. We're going to start with the outside. Lead the customer like you lead them in a walkthrough of your model home, or you should be doing. Explain that repairs will be made prior to occupancy. You know why you do this? It's because you avoid all the picky little stupid stuff. Because if they know it's going to delay their moving in time, they're less likely to note it. That's just a purely self-serving thing as a builder, is let them know, say, we want to make sure the house meets your expectations before you move in, because that's our promise to you. And then they're less likely to pick the little stuff. Helps you manage scheduling so that you can get it done, because after they move in, it's chaos, isn't it? Getting subs in there, they're living there, it's negative now. It's an intrusion on their family life. 30-day checkup now. Send a postcard or an email. You're going to say, why am I going to be asking for more work, Kathy? Are you crazy? And I used to think that way back in the beginning. I'd be like, if they're not calling me, I'm good with it, because I'm very busy trying to sell more houses over here. But in reality, if you keep that same level of service 30 days out now and you remind them, say, there's going to be little things 30 days, fine-tuning things that you've already addressed again in your manual, talking about doors might not quite shut right like they did when you first moved in. Might be a little squeak here or there. Little things that we're going to come out and fine-tune for you. Okay? "30-day checkup. Remind them of items that should be reserved for one-year visits. And again, if you've done your manual well, which, by the way, I'm happy to help people do. If they don't have one, which a lot of you don't, I'm happy to help you with that, because, again, it's really an important part of a good business, in this industry anyway. Remind them of items that should be reserved for 1 year. Like what? Drywall cracks, right? You're going to get customers that call you because they have drywall cracks and they want you to come out and fix it like a week later. You know what will happen, right? You'll be out there every week for 13 weeks straight because there's going to be little things coming up, right? That's what happens in a new home. They don't know that. They don't know that that's normal unless you've educated them as such in your manual. Tell them what to expect. Caulk separations is another one. And be prepared for stay-at-home mom and her fixation. Again, I'm picking on the ladies, but I got to tell you, over the last year or so since getting out of politics, I've been spending more time at home. And, you know, it's just true. Things that never used to bother me that I could care less about now, like, really grate on me. Why? Because I don't have anything else to think about and worry about. When I was running a business and I was in office, my mind was helter-skelter. I didn't care if the laundry didn't get done. I mean, I cared, but I couldn't do anything about it, right? I didn't obsess on one little crack or a squeak in my floor. Are you kidding? I couldn't even see the floor. There was so much laundry there. So when you've got somebody, though, that's home all the time and sits in her favorite chair drinking coffee every morning, and there's a drywall crack right there in her line of sight, she is hating you every day because it's grating on her. Okay? These are the kinds of things you have to watch her. Well, it sounds stupid to you because you're busy and you've got a life. I can tell you, not that I'd ever be that ridiculous, but you know, I probably got my things. And there are some things that you start to obsess on or dwell on. Don't let something small like that be the reason that you don't get a good referral from that customer. Don't drop the ball now. This is the important time after they move in too. Deliver attention and concern like you did in the beginning. Always make sure you're following up with your service calls, keeping detailed sets of notes, who's out there, who'd they talk to, when did you call them back. This is all really great stuff. Homeowner and subcontractor should sign off on the completion of every service visit that you do. Whether it's your own guy maybe that you come, if it's yourself, however it is your company's structured, if you're your subcontractor, they should have work orders from you that they sign and the customer signs before they leave their home. Again, documentation. Follow-up letters or emails if you don't have the time to do a letter. What was done at the 30-day visit? Thanking them for allowing them access to the home because it's their house now. It's not yours anymore. So thank them for allowing that intrusion. Remind them that you'll be back in touch with them at the 1-year anniversary. Some companies do this different. Some people do 30 days, some people do 3 months, and they do a year. Structure it the way that best works for your company, but you should be out there at least 1 or 2 times before the 1-year visit. The reason being, you'll have a lot less to do at the 1 year because they'll feel so taken care of. For the first number of months that they were in that house, they're not going to pick on you. By the time 1 year comes, people will send the sheet back and go, I'm good, Kathy. No big deal, right? But if they had to store up everything for a year, they're keeping it on their refrigerator like a grocery list, and they're adding every little picky thing that they can find because they're kind of ticked off. They feel abandoned. 1-year anniversary, you should be sending a gift to your buyers. How many of you do this? Like nobody. One? Really? No way. Do you do a 1-year anniversary gift? 6. Oh, we've got an overachiever here. 6 months in a year. That's good. What do you give for a gift? Okay. How much? $50 gift certificate to like a home store or hardware store. Excellent idea. Okay, that's good stuff. You can do like a basket. You know, it's a really neat gift for a 1 year, or actually an occupancy gift also is a tree, which is a really neat gift depending on the time of year. You can get little, 3-foot shrub kind of thing, or an evergreen. $30, $40. It's really cheap, and what's really neat about that is they're always seeing the tree growing in the yard. You can do really cute, different kind of things like that. What are you making a face for? It's so corny. But I got to tell you, are you married? All right, then. At the 1-year visit, because you want to, right? This is to enhance their site, and that you care about them. And of course it's corny, but we girls love corny. Okay? Send it first, wait a few days, then send the request for the 1-year warranty visit. Why am I doing that? Because I'm softening her up before I send out asking if there's any work that has to be done. And you'll get a lot less stuff on your 1-year list. This stuff works. Make sure that you're always following up after service calls. Have somebody from your company call to find out if everything's okay. Were they on time? Were they courteous? Did they clean up? These are the things that she cares about, you have to care about. And ask for testimonials. They've been through the process. It's time to make the ask. You should be doing that at closing, and you should be doing it now 1 year later. Referrals of friends and families that are thinking of building, and offering incentives for referrals who build with you. Make this a big one. $500. gift certificate. We would do a $500,000, $2,000 on the third referral. We all know we can build that in, right? To the next, I mean, we know. I'm not kidding anybody here, okay? But be willing to make that investment. Real customer service is a frame of mind, and it's got to be that frame of mind that's held at that intensity all the way through. Challenge your team to empathy, and it's hard to do. It's very easy to be impatient with people when they're being rude to you. It's easy to forget. We use lingo like the subs will be out there and they'll be putting in the headers, and next they're going to, people are like, what? What are you talking about? I just want to know when my beautiful brown siding's going to be put up, right? Be careful not to use too much builder lingo because you shut people off. 73% of all happy homeowners at closing are less satisfied 1 year later. That's a lot. You've worked so hard to build a gorgeous product, putting your best foot forward, right? And now you've got people that you're losing on the end. This little cartoon, it talks about thanks for calling customer service. If you're calm and rational, press 1. If you're a whiner, press 2. And if you're a hothead, press 3. And that's usually a disconnect. But that shouldn't be your company. So I thank you guys for your attention. Okay, thank you.
Very good.